Welcome to another episode of Talking Security with Caliber, brought to you by Caliber Security Partners. What we do is we bring to you some industry experts, people that can provide you some additional knowledge, some additional insight, maybe looking at things a little bit different. That's kind of our goal and our hope to do for you. So this week, I have got Gary DeMercurio. Did I get that right? Close, Gary?
Yeah, we're going to count it as good.
Good. So, one of the things, Gary, that I like to do on this podcast is allow people anonymity. Like that, you don't need to say who you're working for, who you work for. But my understanding is that your employer gave you permission to say who you work for.
Yeah, I just joined on with Caliber Security themselves. So yeah, my employer apparently just gave me that permission, as we say.
Yeah. How about horrible jokes? Like that was not a very good joke, not a great lead in. But Gary just recently joined us, and we've had some pretty good discussions so far. And Gary did something that most people don't do. Most employers will take a new employee and like make him drink from the fire hose. Gary, being a security guy, flipped the fire hose around and is forcing us to drink from a fire hose. So it's kind of refreshing and irritating all at the same time. So I guess kind of thank you and whatever else there is in there. But Gary, give us, if you want to give us like an overview of or some background of who's Gary.
Man, that's an easy question. I've given it 100 times. My background, I got started in the Marine Corps of all things, doing red teaming. I was a pilot. I flew Hueys, and part of being an officer in the Marine Corps is you don't just get to be a pilot. A little unfair and compared to some of the rest of the services, but it is what it is. And so a lot of that was I worked in logistics or S4, and part of working in logistics in S4 is doing building security, safety, H&S, things like that. I had a stint where I was also in S6, which is IT. So you combine all that together, and I did a little work on zipper vaults. And so whenever we would move locations, we had to build out vaults for the secret internet of the Marine Corps. One day when my OIC says, "Hey, you think you can break into that? We're supposed to test it." And I said, "I built it. Of course I can." The rest is history, as they say, for the Marine Corps. I got to lie, cheat, and steal, and get my way into zipper vaults all across the base. And after that, I did, as we were talking about in our previous podcast there, I was a process engineer, quality engineer at Sikorsky Aircraft, and I went to just about every facility they had in Europe for about 5 years. And that's what I would do, is I would go in and I would look at a process and I would fix it, root cause, corrective action, the whole bit, as far as it pertained to helicopters and Sikorsky and things that they were building. And that got a little bit boring, and I said, "Hey, I think I want to be a hacker and get back into stealing things and robbing places, and is that really a job?" And lo and behold, it sure was. It just, you had to be into the computer security territory. So I went and got my master's and got hired on at the lowly rate of, I think it was like $48,000 or something, coming from a triple the salary being an engineer for Sikorsky. So I had to kind of reboot the career and start over, just because I wanted something that excited me when I woke up in the morning. And 10, 11, 12 years later, however long it's been, here I am with lots of stories to tell and places that I've robbed.
Yeah. Well, you may have some better stories than a lot of people do. So I'm sure you've had many opportunities to talk about those, over the years and whatnot. So one of the things you said was about taking a pay cut and going into a new industry. If I don't forget, and if we have time, I'd kind of like to go back to that, because that's kind of an interesting topic. But one of I kind of was thinking about, like, how did we come together, and what's some of the glue that drove, some of the engineers past, current, new, future, are all kind of sort of intertwined with a guy that was near and dear to our heart, and that's Rex Warren. And this isn't about Rex, but and I got a funny story to tell you on Rex. Not really about Rex, but about Rex. But what did Rex mean to you? I just think it's kind of a cool little like opportunity for us to reminisce and maybe do maybe not a memorial, but just kind of a
Yeah.
mini memorial. Yeah.
Rex was like one of the raddest dudes alive, as far as I was concerned. Uh, there wasn't there wasn't something that that guy wasn't into or in the background of in the early days of hacking. He's in so many pictures, and everybody's like, "Who's that skinny guy in the back?" And it's Rex, but nobody ever knew who the skinny guy was in the back. And it was always Rex. The guy was around. He was super quiet. He didn't really have a whole lot to say, but typically when he spoke up, you should probably listen because he was probably right about whatever it is. One of the things I remember, other than when I was first starting out, is him screaming at me. Oddly enough, tab, 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 because he always wanted me to hit tab to finish whatever it is that I was typing in on the command line, and I would just keep typing. And after a while, it became a joke that he would start screaming tab, 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 and I would purposely not tab things when he was screaming at me, just because I like to hear him get upset. I like to egg him on a little bit, which I'm pretty sure he figured out after a while, and then he'd just start screaming tab before I ever typed anything. But he was just, yeah, he was such an integral part to the history of hacking in general. Just not that I want to say that he ever did anything. And this is a misnomer, and it sounds bad, but it's not meant to be. Is he never did anything groundbreaking or earth shattering? He just was involved in some way in absolutely everything. The guy's knowledge was through the roof. His understanding and the history of how everything came together and where it came from and where it was now was phenomenal. Just because he worked on literally mainframes back in the day, it just his growing with the technology. He wasn't one of the people that got left behind, and that happens a lot in our industry. Is people just at some point throw their hand up and say, I don't want to learn anymore. I've been learning for 15, 20 years. And now that we've gone on to the new hotness, I just don't care to learn the new hotness. And Rex wasn't like that. He'd learned from the day he was in to the day that he left us, that he was always learning something new and figuring out how something worked. And that speaks volumes to how you stay relevant in the industry, I think.
And one of the things that with Rex, it was almost that analogy, like or saying where if there's 12 people, that person's the 12th person in the room, like nobody really recognizes him. Rex was like the 13th person that nobody even knew was there, and we would have we'd have leadership meetings, and there were times I was like, dude, are you paying attention? Are you with us? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And he'd be over here like, and then all of a sudden he'd be like, and then he would say something, and I was like, oh, dang, like he was absorbing everything, and he just listened differently, but he was his knowledge and experience was extremely deep, and so. But I was, Rex was so quiet, and I'm not. And
Mm-hmm.
like one time, I sent him a Slack message, and I don't remember if I did LOL or haha or an exclamation point. And he comes back to me and types to me, and he goes, basically something about the overuse of the exclamation point, and the lack or the something about not needing LOLs or ha-has. And it
Yep.
turned into this big thing like, is there a time when I can just use one? Can I just say ha? Because ha-ha is too much. And Rex, I don't even want to broach ha-ha-ha, but could I just do one?
Mm-hmm.
And and he was like, I just don't this I just don't like it. So almost every Slack after that message I would send him, I'd do, ha ha, LOL, etc. exclamation point. You
Yep.
know, but he was, he was just a quiet guy, and but so good at what he did, and I think he was so the quietness was almost a detriment to his ability, because sometimes, you know, he wasn't great at self promoting, but man, that guy just knew more than most people forget.
Yep.
And so I'll tell you two quick stories about him, then we can talk about whatever. But one of them was, we had this challenging client, right? And it was we've been around for what, 13, 12, 13, 13 years, 14 years, whatever it is. And we've had one instance where I was like, yeah, I don't really blame the client for being irritated. We messed that up. I mean, like one time. But this was a time when the client was just difficult. They like switched the rules of the game and what they wanted at the like 11th and a half hour. They come back later and say, we'll give you another chance. And Rex is like, I don't want to work with them. They're gaslighting you. And
Yep.
I'm like, no, they're not. Then I'm like, what exactly does, I'm looking up Google, what exactly is gaslighting? So I'm like, yeah, I'll go back. I'm like, no, they're not. I don't know how many months go by. Rex has passed away, and I'm just like, damn you, Rex. You were right. So, it just, a second one kind of, and it wasn't us, it was them, but it was just kind of one of those situations where from the grave, Rex like tormented me. But the other one was is I realized, I found out that there is internet in heaven, because about a week after Rex passed away, I get an email from him that says he would like to change his bank account information to a different bank. So I think there's internet in heaven.
Wow. Yep.
Alternatively, wait a
Obviously.
second. Yeah, wait a second. There might be another alternative, but anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just kind of wanted to talk about Rex for a second, because that's just something that and that kind of bound us a little bit, right? And I mean, I loved seeing the picture of everybody that went to lunch after kind of going to his hospital and seeing him the last time, and then going out and having
Hmm.
lunch. That was pretty cool. But so here you are now. Now you're at Caliber. You still don't fully, like. I mean, you got an idea of what we do, but it's still new. It's still cutting edge, or not cutting edge, but new to you.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I'm always, it's been a while since I've uh, gone to work for another company, right? Because of owning Caliber and that. But I remember, like, always thinking, man, why do they do things the way that they do? And now that I'm this far into it, I'm like, companies kind of take on a life of their own. And it's like, not that the owners are like, this is because we want to run it this way. It's because somehow we ended up here. So when you look at, like, from a security guy, right? Not we can talk about from a security leader, but a security guy, and then maybe a security leader. Like, when you come into something like this, what do you see as like the opportunities to make a change? Because I think that's one of the things that people want to do, is they want to make a change wherever they go, right?
I think step one, and I've made this mistake. A lot of things that I've learned is from screwing things up. Um, but is not being too harsh or too quick to judge when you first land at a place. I To use another example, when I worked for Sikorsky, as soon as I hit the ground in Spain, I was all up in arms. And as a former captain in the Marine Corps, you kind of yell and scream about a lot of things, right? Get excited. Why are you so messed up? And that was kind of the attitude I took in there, and still obviously respectful and polite. But my counterpart at the time, he just said there's a rhyme and there's a reason. Just learn what it is before you get too excited. I said, okay. And so I took it to heart and I sat there and I think I gave it about 2 or 3 months. And then, and lo and behold, 2 or 3 months when I let them do things the way they wanted to do them and the way that they had figured it out, the process that they had come up with, although different than the process that Sikorsky had for them, worked better than the process that Sikorsky had for them. The rock and the hard spot that I was in was I was there to make sure that the quality systems and the process was adhered to per Sikorsky standards, but yet here they were and they had a process that was better than what the Sikorsky standard was. So it was trying to fit the square peg into the round hole to make sure that both sides were equally happy. So I'd say the first thing when you go into a company is just shut up and listen. Ask some questions and poke and prod and get people's feathers ruffled just a little bit, and then stand back and see how everybody reacts and what they do and how they answer, and just figure out what the process is because you never know. There's usually a rhyme or a reason to why people are doing things or why they have decided to go that route, and it's kind of a bad idea to change something before you know why it works like that.
Yeah, and sometimes, just maybe putting yourself in the position of the other people, how did because none of in any of it, we joked about like maybe not weighing the same amount we did when we got married, right? We may have put on a pound or two, right?
Hmm.
But that pound or two or three, whatever, didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual thing. And then all of
Yep.
a sudden we end up there and we're like, huh, how the crap did this happen? And how do I unspool or, cut the weight that I put on? And sometimes I think as companies, what's just important for people to remember is that it's not like they just didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this dumb, stupid thing. It's like it's a gradual thing. And so, I think about it because, I was thinking about like how, you've come and said, what about this? What about this? What about this? And, there's times when I go back to, when my mom had, like her knee was just jacked up, right? She was like 80 something years old and it was jacked up and she walked all the time. And I was like, Mom, why don't you get a knee replacement? No, I don't want to do that because of the fear or the taking the step to do something seemed more painful than getting it done, right? I mean, the other side of the knee surgery, she would have been much more happy, but she like butted up against that. And so sometimes I think, when you go into a new company, is you kind of have to think like, hey, maybe this is like knee surgery. Maybe they're like, I realize that if I open this up, it's just going to be like
A hot mess.
a hot mess. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
and we so it's that, like you said, it's the patience of getting to that point. But the one of the as I think about um, uh, you know and we kind of go we kind of touched a little bit about like entering into the the security world, but one of the drivers for when you and I first talked when we were interviewing and whatever is, I kind of like after 13 years looked around and I was like, how in the world did I end up here? Honestly, right? And it's like I want to be creative. I want to, I want to I want to be, I want us to come up with new ideas, new things, new products, new services. I want us to try different things. I want us to be innovative, right? And so when we ended up at this point where that drive to innovate had kind of left, right? And here I am as the CEO, like, let's go this way. Boom, hit a dead end. Boom, hit a dead end. I don't know if you can see my hands. Boom, hit a dead end, right? And so but that innovation is so important. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I did what
I
I
do,
did.
and I'm going to pick up right where you're leaving off right there because that's what a good co-host would do, right?
That's what a
Um,
good
I,
co-host would do.
I think a lot of companies they let me start this a different way. I listened to a podcast once where a CEO of a company said that they wanted to do what they were good at and not what they just needed to do. And so what that person ended up ultimately doing was investing in help to do the things that they weren't good at. Still part of their job description technically, but wanted to have somebody else do it so they could be freed up to do the things that they were really good at.
Yeah.
And I think I took a lot of that to heart, and in essence, I am a lazy person. I don't want to do a whole lot of work throughout the day. I want to be able to make sure that every
Oh,
single thing I do is efficient, it's streamlined, that it gets done is the most efficient way possible, so I can do the things that either I'm good at or that I really enjoy doing. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of companies they lose that at some point, or they never really build that into into the way that the company runs. Is being lazy isn't a bad thing. It's when you're lazy and then nothing comes of it. If you're lazy and then you make processes and procedures to make it to where you have to do less work, but it still gets done in the same manner. To me, that's a phenomenal thing, and it allows you to be more innovative, right? If you can streamline and do the things that you have on your daily to-do sheet as the CEO, and you find out, hey, if I do them this way, or we do it this way, or whatever great scheme we've come up with, it now I have got 3 extra hours throughout the day to do other things that I wasn't able to do before. That is the biggest impact I think you can do in a company when you get there and you look at the processes and procedures, to make sure that people have more time to do what they're good at.
yeah. And you know what? That like hallelujah, man, from a CEO standpoint, I'm not good at everything. And a lot of the things I'm not good at, I don't like. So it's a bad combination when I'm not good
Yeah.
at it and I don't like it. It's also a bad combination when I'm good at it and I love doing it, because that doesn't necessarily translate into productivity or success or growth or anything like that. So it's that combination of doing what you love that is also productive, and that. So, you know, I think about that. So thanks for saving me on that. And so it was kind of a weird little thing where, we haven't announced it yet, but I will here right now, and that is that I asked Gary, did you want to be my co-host? And he said yes. I didn't get on my knees. I didn't make it weird. I didn't do anything like that when I asked him, and when he said yes. But I'm excited about that, about you being a co-host, because you're a snarky bastard, and I'm one, right? And so it's like the chances of us not getting in trouble and not getting like canceled or censored or something, even unintentionally, right? I mean, it's probably pretty slim, right? So I'm excited about having you
I
here.
hope.
Yeah, yeah, and so you actually kind of got to co-host and be a guest at the same time here, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, dude, I'm excited about and I think that's the thing that when people come into a company, and it probably depends on the company, right? But really, a company is paying for more than a person to do their job. They're paying for ingenuity, for new ideas, new eyeballs, different views. Because the worst thing you can do is just you know keep the same people inside your group, inside your company, and inside of that decision making process, and then things get stale. And that's kind of where we were at, where things just kind of got a little bit stale. So that's pretty. So I'm I'm happy about that. But I want to get back to this entry into security because it's a question I get from people all the time. Like, like how do I break into security? And it was interesting that you were willing to take a deep pay cut to get in. But what do you tell people when they're trying to make this an entry point?
To be honest with you, that answer has changed in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, I would have given somebody the advice to uh, go and get an education. I would have said, go ahead and study, maybe get your OSCP or get some variation of it. I like some different certificates over the OSCP, but um, I like I just like to see people make effort into things. I've always been a huge proponent of fit over function, because, as they tell you in the Navy, Marine Corps, we can teach a monkey how to fly. It's all the other stuff that we need the person for, and it's the same thing. I can teach a monkey how to hack pretty much. It's all the other stuff that you hire on for. It's the being a consultant. It's how to talk to a customer. It's how to use your noggin to figure things out. It's not just the hacking part of it. It's the desire and the drive in order to learn and to do it and to have your own network at home that you practice on, to see what your home network is like and see what kind of security you put in your house, just because it's something that you like to do in your off time. I will take somebody that is like that has that drive, and desire to learn, over somebody who has 15 certificates any day of the week. I've interviewed people that have OSCP, CISSP, and you name, whatever security practitioner here, and they've done horrible on interviews, and they didn't know the basics of what you would expect somebody to know, in an interview. Some of that is, they just people interview poorly. I'm one of those people. I interview terribly, but at the same token, um, 5 years ago, that's the advice I would have given. Now the advice is no. There's become so many gatekeepers in the industry that if you don't have the same certificates that they have and you haven't gone through the same pain that they've done, then they won't even talk to you. They won't even look at you. And it's absolutely short-sightedness, and it's just poor leadership in general. When you start making it's just this build, the gate gets higher and higher or deeper or longer, or whatever analogy you want to use. You start requesting everyone to have these certificates to even get their foot in the door. It's ridiculous. They don't need them. It's Our industry is one of the very few industries where you don't need a higher education in order to be really, really good at what you do. And for the longest time, that's been the case. You just needed to know what you were doing. And now it's, especially with the layoffs and the way that the tech sector is now, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Susan, and Jane out there that has ever computed in their life is putting in an application to be a red teamer, or they're putting an application to be cybersecurity X, when all they've really ever done is development. Not that they can't make that jump, and not that the people shouldn't give them that opportunity at all, but it also makes breaking into the industry much, much, much more difficult, because you have this one person who's been a developer for 15 years, worked at Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, and now they've been laid off. And then so the gatekeepers are like, oh, I'd rather have this guy than this person who's fresh out of college, or I'd rather have that than this person who has 3 years, 3 years working as a system analyst at a small company or something. And the reality is I'd interview both of them, and whoever had the most drive and dedication and really, really wanted it and showed that they had been doing stuff in their off time, that's the person that I would choose as a hiring manager. And most of the companies that I've seen that have really good programs, their hiring management takes a very similar approach to that. It's when you start getting the 6 day interview processes, or 3 months long, or 5 hours for 3 days in a row. I've never seen a shop like that that's cohesive, where people actually care about things and they really want to help each other learn. It takes a village to raise a hacker, because everybody's good at something different and everybody likes something different. And when you put a bunch of nerds in a room, glorious things happen. But when you put a bunch of antisocial nerds in a room, they're all really, really smart, something completely different happens. And that's what you get when you get the gatekeepers, is you get a bunch of antisocial nerds, in a room who don't want to help, who don't want to talk, who just want to do their business, and they're really good at it. But you can't fill an entire company with that and expect that company to do well at the things that they're supposed to do well at.
Yeah. The part I would add to that is the networking. I mean, the meeting people, the socializing, the getting out and being active in the community and reaching out and getting to know people. I think that more and more the entry point into a company is to have, or into a job is to have some knowledge of who you are before you interview. And that's hard unless you take a long approach to your career. And I end up I speak often at universities, and I'll make a disclaimer right now. And I've had people say you should be careful making this offer because you'll get inundated. I'm like, no, I won't. I can make this all day long. Nobody's gonna. But I'll go, and I've spoken to, I don't know how many it's not thousands but hundreds of students at universities, and I'll say who you know and who can help guide you matters, like who you know in the industry, and I'll tell them, I'll go, I'm really well connected. I know a lot of people. I will be there to help you. I'll answer questions. I'll guide you. You tell me what you know what, I'll be your guy. I will help you along the way because I want to see you succeed. I don't even know any of the people in the room, but I want to see you succeed. And then I'll draw a line in the sand and I'll say, but here's the thing. Maybe one of you will contact me and but zero will build a relationship with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I haven't had any of them. But when I look at Caliber, almost exclusively, we hire from people that know people, right? So it's like we don't go out and say, bring in all the resumes and let us see who we have. We get resumes all the time, and honestly, I don't even look at them. We need somebody. I'm going to go to somebody and say, who do you know that does this, that fits with our culture? Again, that's like a networking thing, and I think people miss that. So if you're a new person and you want to enter into the industry, you're much better off if somebody says, I know a person that would be phenomenal here, but we have to train him and we have to do this, this, and this. You're gonna get an interview and get an opportunity to present yourself better than somebody that's a paper dragon with 15 different certifications that doesn't have any sort of job experience. Because, you brought it up. Some of our best hackers at Caliber have no certifications, none. And, you'd put them up against anybody. So it's like, I don't sit there and say, I might if I don't know who they are because I don't have anything to gravitate towards other than certs or like whatever. But, for the most part, you're looking for me, I'm looking for who knows somebody, what kind of experience do they have, can they validate for them or validate them, and then I'm going to build a relationship based upon that. So I think that's, for me at least, that's a missing key, is people don't get out and network. And then you talked about it like an introvert. Man, what I just said is brutal for a lot of security people because they're like, all I want is to be pointed in a direction and to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And what I just said is completely counterintuitive for those people.
There's a place for those people though. It's just
Absolutely.
you can't hire only those people. And I think that to get on a soapbox here for a second, because it's one of my favorite places to be on this topic, is I hate certificates. And it's not the fact that I hate the learning. It's not the fact that I dislike the fact that somebody has proven that they understand the knowledge. Now they have a certificate stating that they have the knowledge. A degree is no different, right? And I've got plenty of those. But the certificate drives me crazy because number one, you look at some of the certs out there, they cost more than 2 semesters of college at a place where you can take 6 classes a semester, 12 classes for less money than one certificate because the said company, and I'm not going to name any names, but everyone knows exactly who I'm talking about, their CEO comes out and says, we're going to keep raising the prices until people stop buying it. And the prices are ridiculous because people, they keep pushing the fact that you need to have certificates. I've taken a ton of classes and I paid for the training on a ton of classes. I refuse to take the certification exam. And a lot of reasons is because is my primary focus in at least in my professional capacity is red teaming, and a big part of that is social engineering because it's the number one way you get into a company's back end, if you will, to be to have something to where we're going to get canceled by saying getting the company's back end. Um, but social engineering is just an easy way because people are susceptible to manipulation. And when you start learning social engineering at a very deep level, when you start actually going in and you learn the psychology behind it, why it works, why people's brains work that way, up to the point where people will look right at you in a situation and look through you. They won't even see you. You will effectively be invisible to their brain just based on the perception and how it is that they're looking at things and how they're perceiving things on a lot of different factors. When you go into it that deep and you start seeing and start re-looking at the certification process, you start seeing the manipulation of the certification. And I'm not going to be part of it. The OSCP, and I'll call them out. It's great knowledge. The training is awesome in OSCP. The way that they give you that knowledge is just a hot dumpster fire. It's terrible. Their motto is literally try harder. I'm going to give you thousands of dollars, and your answer is for me to try harder. Imagine going to Harvard and sitting down, and your professor sitting in front of you with his arms crossed and saying, well, here's the book, learn it. And then me say, okay, well, I've got a lot of try harder. Well, what about this? I'm not really sure on this, and I'm not, try harder. It's okay. Well, can I go over here and ask this person? Yeah, you can ask them, but they're not necessarily going to tell you because they've had to go through the try harder methodology too, and they're going to tell you the same thing. Well, I had to try harder, so you got to try harder. If we did schooling like that, kindergarten, high school, college, and the teacher just looked at you and said, try harder, you'd slap them upside the head. You'd be like, that is not what a teacher is you're supposed to teach. And when you take the OSCP, my personal opinion is they should teach you. And then you take that test based on how well you learned the things that they put in front of you. And a lot of the testing is just it's manipulative in the fact that it's set up for you to fail. Why? So you can take the test again and give them more money. At no point in my entire career, and there's going to be other people that are going to say differently, but no point in my entire career have I ever had to hack anything in 24 hours or the world would explode. It doesn't exist in our society. Never is there a bomb attached to a computer that I need to hack, and if I don't, then it explodes and the world isn't an end. Ever. Not in a million years. And so the fact that when you're taking the OSCP, you've got 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it is now in order to complete the exam, and I get it. Well, you only have an hour to, or you only have a week in order to pen test a customer. Oh, okay, I get it, but that's not necessarily why they do it that way. It's to implement pressure on a person, and it's just not realistic. And that's the whole point of it. Is it's supposed to be realistic, and it's a manipulative technique to try to get people to spend more money at their business. Great business idea, especially when you get a bunch of gatekeepers that buy into it and say, yeah, try harder, go spend money. Good for them, but for just society in general and just for the community, oh God, I hate certificates for that reason. I hate them with passion. There are some companies that do it differently, though. I will say that. There are some companies that train and teach and present the material that you would expect it to be presented in a different way, or in the right way, and then test you on what they presented. I back that 100%. But the whole try harder crap, or $8,000 for a 1 week course is just it's insane. It's insane. Anyway, now I'm off my
That's
soapbox.
that's the snarky I was waiting to hear, man. Oh man. So we're gonna end with that. I mean, what a way to end. But dude, I'm so excited to have you as my co-host on this. I'm just hoping you don't piss the guests off too much. Maybe you get a little bit of food for thought. But dang, that was good, right? So I want to just close out, and we do the podcast at a podcast studio. And the studio managers always after me to say a close. And I don't close. And I'll just, I listened to a podcast the other day with an 8-minute opening. I had like 8 seconds. And I have like 0 seconds on the close. So here's my close. Thank you for tuning in to Talking Security with Caliber. We hope you'll join us next time on the next episode of As Caliber Turns. There we go.
Lovely.
All right, buddy. All right, thank you. And that's it. Maybe I should never do another close again. But Gary, looking forward to this. Looking forward to this, and we'll get on these regularly. So thank you.